The rookie's voice cut through the morning silence like a blade. Hands where I can see them. I said hands where I can see them. The figure on the sidewalk didn't move, didn't even flinch. He sat there against the brick wall of the old pharmacy, motionless as a statue. His torn jacket hung loose around his shoulders, revealing a stained undershirt beneath. His hair was matted, unwashed, streaked with premature gray. A weathered duffel bag sat beside him like a faithful dog. Officer Martinez had been on the force for exactly 3 months. Fresh out of the academy, eager to prove himself. And right now, every instinct screamed danger. The man looked homeless, looked unpredictable, looked like trouble. Sir, I need you to show me your hands right now. Martinez's voice cracked slightly. His grip tightened on his service weapon, though he hadn't drawn it yet. The training echoed in his head. Assess the threat, maintain control, protect yourself and others. The man's head tilted slightly. One eye was swollen shut, purple and angry. The other eye looked up at Martinez with something that might have been amusement. Easy there, kid, the man said, his voice hoarse like sandpaper. I'm just sitting here. That's when Captain Harris arrived. The squad car pulled up with a soft hiss of brakes. Captain Harris stepped out, adjusting his belt, ready to back up his rookie. He was a 20-year veteran, had seen every kind of situation the city could throw at him. But when he looked at the man on the sidewalk, when he really looked at his face, everything inside him went cold. Time seemed to stop. Sir, he's not complying, Martinez called out, frustration building in his voice. Should I... Wait. The captain's voice was barely a whisper. He took a slow step forward, his eyes never leaving the man's face, despite the swelling, despite the dirt and the beard, despite 6 years of wear and tear. He knew that face. Danny, the man with the swollen eye, looked up. A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. Hey, Cap. Martinez looked between them, confusion replacing his earlier tension. The captain's hand had moved away from his weapon entirely. In fact, his whole posture had changed. The authority was still there, but something else had crept in. Something that looked almost like relief. Danny Fields, Captain Harris said, and it wasn't a question. Officer Daniel Fields. Badge number 247. Harris remembered the day Danny had graduated from the academy, remembered the pride in his young face. Danny had been the kind of cop others looked up to, the kind who volunteered for the worst calls, who stayed late to help with paperwork, who knew every shopkeeper's name on his beat. He'd been decorated twice. Commendations for bravery. A letter of thanks from the mayor after he talked a jumper down from the Morrison Bridge. Danny Fields had been destined for great things. Then he disappeared. 6 years ago, Danny had simply vanished. One day he was there, the next his locker was empty, and his badge was on the chief's desk. No forwarding address, no explanation, just gone. You vanished, Captain Harris said now, his voice thick with emotion he was trying to contain. Danny shifted against the wall, wincing slightly. Yeah, where have you been? Around. The captain studied him. The clothes were filthy but not torn beyond repair. The duffel bag was old military surplus, well maintained despite its age. Danny himself looked thin, weathered, but not broken. Not entirely. Martinez, the captain said without turning around, lower your weapon. But sir, lower it. Officer Martinez reluctantly holstered his gun, though his hand remained near it. He'd never seen the captain like this. Never seen him look at anyone the way he was looking at this homeless man. Danny, The captain continued. What happened to you? For a long moment, Danny didn't answer. He stared at his hands, rough and calloused now, dirt permanently embedded under his fingernails. When he spoke, his voice was so quiet both officers had to strain to hear. Sarah died. The words hung in the air like smoke. Captain Harris closed his eyes briefly. He remembered Sarah Fields. Bright smile, worked as a nurse at St. Mary's. She used to bring cookies to the precinct Christmas parties. The cancer, Danny continued. It was fast. 3 months from diagnosis, too. She was gone before I even understood what was happening. Danny, I'm sorry, we all are. But you could have... Could have what? Danny's voice sharpened. Talked to the department shrink? Taken bereavement leave? Sat in my apartment staring at her empty chair? He shook his head. I tried that, Captain. For about 6 months. Drank myself stupid every night. Showed up late if I showed up at all. You remember. Harris did remember. The missed shifts. The smell of alcohol. The gradual deterioration of one of his best officers. We tried to help you, Harris said. I know. Oh, but I was drowning and I was taking everyone down with me. Danny looked up at him with his good eye. So I left. Figured it was better for everyone. You've been on the streets this whole time? Danny nodded. Here and there, shelters when it gets too cold, under bridges when they're full. It's not so bad once you get used to it. Officer Martinez shifted uncomfortably. This whole conversation felt surreal, like he'd stepped into someone else's story. But you never stopped carrying your badge, Captain Harris observed. Danny's hand moved instinctively to his jacket pocket. Even through the fabric, Harris could see the outline of the familiar leather wallet. Old habits, Danny said with a shrug. It's more than that. The captain's voice was certain now. You never stopped being a cop, did you? Danny didn't answer, but he didn't need to. The silence was answer enough. What have you been doing out here, Danny? For the first time, Danny looked uncomfortable. He shifted against the wall, his fingers working at a loose thread on his jacket. Nothing official, he said finally. I didn't ask if it was official. Danny sighed. I watch. I listen. Sometimes I help. Help how? There was a kid last month, 15, maybe 16, strung out on something, probably fentanyl. Found him in the alley behind Murphy's bar, barely breathing. Called 911, stayed with him until the ambulance came. And nothing. Kid lived. Went to rehab, last I heard. Captain Harris felt something twist in his chest. What else? There was a domestic situation 3 weeks ago. Apartment above the laundromat on 5th Street. Could hear the screaming from 2 blocks away. Woman getting beat up pretty bad. Danny's voice was matter-of-fact, professional. I knocked on the door. Guy answered, drunk as a lord. Told him the neighbors had called the cops, that they were on their way. He sobered up real quick. Let me in to check on the woman. Did you call the police? Didn't need to. She pressed charges the next day. He's in county lockup now. Martinez was staring at Danny now, his earlier fear replaced by something like awe. This homeless man had been doing police work without a badge, without authority, without backup. Jesus, Danny, you've been doing this alone? Not alone. The streets have their own network. People talk. They see things. They just don't usually talk to cops. Danny almost smiled. But I'm not a cop anymore, am I? You never stopped being a cop, Captain Harris said firmly. Badge or no badge? Danny reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small notebook. The cover was worn smooth, held together with electrical tape. He handed it to the captain. What's this? Journal, names, dates, descriptions. Things I've seen, things I've done. Harris opened the notebook. Page after page of meticulous handwriting. Dates, times, locations, descriptions of crimes, suspects, victims, phone numbers and addresses, follow-up notes. It was police work, documented the way Danny had been trained to do it. "Oh, my God," Harris whispered. "How many cases are in here?" 37 incidents over 6 years. Some small, some not so small. There's a section in the back about the Morrison Street murders. I was sleeping rough in that area when they happened. Saw things. Heard things. Captain Harris flipped to the back of the notebook. The Morrison Street murders had been a series of brutal killings that had terrorized the city 2 years ago. 3 victims, all homeless, all found in similar circumstances. The case had gone cold. "Danny, this is incredible. You've been gathering evidence?" "Just writing down what I saw, what I heard. People talk to me because they think I'm nobody, just another bum, but I remember everything." Martinez stepped closer, his earlier suspicion completely forgotten. "Sir, what does this mean?" Captain Harris was reading through the notebook, his expression growing more amazed with each page. "This means Danny has been working cases for 6 years without any official support, without any authority, without any recognition." He looked up at Danny. "And apparently solving them." "I haven't solved anything," Danny protested. I just wrote down what I saw." "The Morrison Street murders," Harris said, tapping the page. "You have descriptions here that match evidence we never released to the public. You have witness accounts we never got. You have—" He paused, reading more carefully. "You have a license plate number. The killer drove a blue sedan. Older model, maybe early 2000s. I saw it 3 times in the area during the weeks when the murders happened. Always late at night, always cruising slow like the driver was looking for something. Or someone," Harris said grimly. "The plate was mud-covered, but I got a partial. It's in there." Harris found the entry. A partial plate number, a description of the vehicle, even a rough sketch of the driver. It was more than they'd had to work with at the time. "Why didn't you come to us with this?" Danny looked at him like he'd asked why the sky was blue. "I'm a homeless guy with a drinking problem and a history of mental instability. You really think anyone would have taken me seriously?" The truth of that statement hit both officers like a physical blow. Danny was right. If a homeless man had walked into the precinct with a notebook full of observations about unsolved murders, he'd have been written off as a crank at best, a potential suspect at worst. "Things are different now," Harris said quietly. "Are they?" Before Harris could answer, his radio crackled to life. "Unit 12, we have a report of a disturbance at the Quick Stop on Maple Street. Possible robbery in progress." Harris looked at Danny, then at Martinez. The rookie was staring at Danny with something approaching hero worship. "Go," Danny said. "I'll be here when you get back." "Will you?" Danny's good eye met his. "Yeah, Captain, I will." The next hour was a blur of police work. The Quick Stop robbery turned out to be a false alarm. A confused elderly man who'd forgotten his wallet and couldn't understand why the clerk wouldn't let him take his groceries. By the time Harris and Martinez returned to the pharmacy, the sun was higher and the morning foot traffic was picking up. Danny was still there, sitting against the wall. But now there was a small crowd around him. An elderly woman had brought him a cup of coffee. A businessman had left a sandwich. A young mother with a stroller had stopped to talk. "Popular guy," Martinez observed. "Always was," Harris said. Even when he was on the force, people gravitated toward him. He had a gift for making people feel safe. They approached the group. The civilians scattered when they saw the uniforms, but not in fear. More like they were giving the officers space to work. "Danny," Harris said, "we need to talk." "I figured. Not here. Come with us." Danny looked at his duffel bag, then at the captain. "Am I under arrest?" "Number. But we need to discuss your activities." "And if I don't want to discuss them?" Harris crouched down so he was at Danny's eye level. "Then I'll sit here with you until you do. I've got all day." Danny studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, Captain. But I'm not getting in the back of your car. You can ride up front." The precinct hadn't changed much in 6 years. Same fluorescent lights, same industrial carpeting, same smell of coffee and disappointment. But walking through those doors again, Danny felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Belonging. Officers looked up as they passed. Some recognized him. Others just saw another homeless man being brought in. The reactions were mixed. Surprise, confusion, curiosity, but no hostility. Not yet. Captain Harris led him to an interview room, but left the door open. A gesture of respect, not interrogation. "Coffee?" Harris offered. "That'd be nice." Martinez went to get it, leaving the two men alone. "You know I have to report this," Harris said. "I know. The notebook, the activities, all of it. This goes up the chain." Danny nodded. "I understand." "Do you? Because this can go a lot of different ways. Could go bad. Could go good, too." Harris leaned back in his chair. "How do you figure?" "I've been out there 6 years, Cap. I've seen things, done things, helped people. Maybe that counts for something." "Maybe it does." Martinez returned with the coffee. Danny wrapped his hands around the cup, savoring the warmth. "The Morrison Street murders," Harris said. "That partial plate number. We're going to run it. Figured you would. If it leads to an arrest, if it closes those cases, then maybe some families get closure. That's what matters." Harris pulled out his phone and called the detective bureau. While he spoke, Danny sipped his coffee and looked around the room. The walls were painted that institutional beige that seemed to be mandatory in government buildings. There was a bulletin board with safety notices and policy updates. A water-stained drop ceiling. It was exactly the kind of place he'd once called home. "Detective Morrison is on his way down," Harris said, ending the call. "He's been working those murders since day one. This notebook of yours might be the break he's been looking for. And if it is, then we'll figure out what comes next." Detective Morrison arrived 20 minutes later. He was a tall, thin man with graying hair and tired eyes. He'd been carrying the Morrison Street case like a weight on his shoulders for 2 years. "Captain Harris says you might have information about my case," he said, settling into a chair across from Danny. Danny nodded toward the notebook. "It's all in there." Morrison opened it, reading carefully. His expression grew more intense with each page. This is incredible. You were there? You saw the suspect?" 3 times. Same car, same general area, same time frame. Driver was a white male, maybe 40 to 50 years old. Average build. Baseball cap pulled low, but I got a look at his face the 3rd time. "Could you identify him?" "Maybe, if I saw him again." Morrison continued reading. "You have witness statements here. People who saw things, heard things. People we never found. Homeless community is tight. People don't talk to cops, but they talk to each other. And they talked to you. I'm one of them." Morrison looked up from the notebook. "Not anymore, you're not." What do you mean? I mean this notebook, these observations, this investigation. It's professional level work. This is what a detective does. This is what a cop does. Morrison closed the notebook carefully. You never stopped being a cop. The words echoed what Captain Harris had said earlier. Danny felt something shift inside him, something he'd kept buried for 6 years. I lost my badge, he said quietly. No, Morrison said. You lost your job. Your badge, your instincts, your duty, that's still there. That's still who you are. Captain Harris leaned forward. Danny, what if I told you there was a way back? Back to what? Back to the job. Back to the badge. Back to doing what you were born to do. Danny stared at him. That's impossible. I was terminated. I have a record. I'm a mess. You're a cop who's been working undercover for 6 years in the roughest assignment imaginable. You've maintained operational security, gathered intelligence, and solved cases without any official support. Harris's voice was firm. That's not a mess. That's extraordinary. The department would never. The department needs good cops, and you're one of the best I've ever worked with. Detective Morrison nodded. This notebook alone is worth a commendation. If the plate number pans out, if we can close the Morrison Street case, you'll be a hero. Danny felt tears threatening. He'd forgotten what hope felt like. What would I have to do? Get clean, get healthy, pass the physical and psychological evaluations. Show us you're ready to wear the badge again. And if I can't, then you keep doing what you're doing. But with our support, maybe we can find a way to make it official. Consultant, liaison, something. Danny looked at both men. These representatives of a life he'd thought was lost forever. I need time to think about it. Take all the time you need, Harris said. But Danny, don't disappear on us again. We've got work to do. 3 weeks later, Officer Martinez was walking his beat when he spotted a familiar figure. Danny was sitting on a bench in Morrison Park, feeding pigeons from a bag of breadcrumbs. He looked different, cleaner somehow. The swelling around his eye had gone down, and he was wearing new clothes. Hey, Martinez called out. How's it going? Danny looked up and smiled. Not bad, kid. How's the rookie life treating you? Better. I learned something that day we met. Yeah? What's that? That being a cop isn't about the uniform. It's about the person wearing it. Danny nodded. That's a good lesson. Detective Morrison says the partial plate number you gave us led to an arrest. The Morrison Street killer. I heard. Guy confessed to everything once they brought him in. Families finally have their answers. Because of you, Danny shrugged. Because of a lot of people. I just wrote down what I saw. Martinez sat down on the bench beside him. Captain Harris says you're considering coming back. I'm thinking about it. What's holding you back? Danny tossed a handful of breadcrumbs to the pigeons. Fear, mostly. I was in a bad place when I left. Real bad. I hurt people, let people down. But you got better. Maybe. Or maybe I just got different. Different how? Danny considered the question. I understand the streets now. Understand the people nobody else sees. The ones who fall through the cracks. I know how to talk to them, how to help them. If I come back, I want to make sure I can still do that. Why wouldn't you be able to? Because cops and street people don't usually mix. There's a wall between us. I've been on both sides now. Martinez nodded. So you'd be like a bridge. Maybe. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the pigeons. Finally, Martinez spoke again. For what it's worth, I think you should come back. The department needs someone like you, someone who understands. Thanks, kid. That means something. 2 months later, Captain Harris was sitting in his office when the phone rang. It was Chief Davidson. Harris, I need to see you in my office. And bring that notebook. Harris had been expecting this call. Word had gotten out about Danny's activities, about the Morrison Street case, about the unusual situation of a former cop working the streets as an unofficial investigator. The brass wanted answers. Chief Davidson was a political animal, but he was also a cop. He'd come up through the ranks, knew the streets, understood the complexities of police work. When Harris walked into his office, the chief was reading a copy of Danny's notebook. "Sit down, Captain." Harris sat. "This is remarkable work," Davidson said, tapping the notebook. "Professional level investigation. Better than professional in some ways. Your man Fields was operating without resources, without backup, without authority, and yet he documented everything like a textbook case study. Danny was always thorough. Was he always crazy?" Harris bristled. "He's not crazy, Chief. He went through a rough patch after his wife died, but I'm not criticizing him. I'm asking a legitimate question, because what he did living on the streets, maintaining his investigative work, keeping detailed records, it's either the actions of a dedicated police officer or a man with serious psychological issues. Which do you think it is?" Davidson leaned back in his chair. "I think it's both. And I think that might be exactly what we need." Harris blinked. "Sir? We've got a homeless population that's grown by 30% in the last 5 years. We've got crime rates rising in areas where traditional policing doesn't work. We've got witnesses who won't talk to uniforms and victims who won't report crimes." Davidson gestured to the notebook. "And we've got a former cop who's been successfully working those communities for 6 years. What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe it's time we tried something different. Maybe it's time we had someone who could bridge that gap." Harris felt a spark of hope. "You want to bring Danny back?" "I want to create a new position. Community liaison. Someone who can work with the homeless population, the street people, the ones nobody else can reach. Someone who speaks their language." "And you think Danny's the right person for that?" "I think Danny's the only person for that. Question is, does he want it?" Harris smiled. "I think he does." The ceremony was small, just a few people in the chief's office. Danny stood at attention, wearing a new uniform that still felt strange after 6 years. His hair was cut, his face clean-shaven. He looked like a cop again, but his eyes were different. There was a depth there that hadn't been there before, a understanding born of experience and loss and redemption. "Officer Fields," Chief Davidson said, "by the authority vested in me by the city of Portland, I hereby reinstate you to active duty with the Portland Police Bureau. You are assigned to the newly created position of Community Liaison Officer, with the responsibility of serving as a bridge between the police department and the city's homeless and at-risk populations." Danny accepted the badge, the familiar weight of it in his hands. Badge number 247, the same number he'd carried before. "Do you swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the laws of the state of Oregon, and to faithfully discharge the duties of your office?" "I do." "Then welcome home, Officer Fields." Captain Harris stepped forward and shook Danny's hand. "Welcome back, Danny." "Thanks, Captain, for everything. Don't thank me yet. You've got work to do." Danny smiled. I know. I've been doing it for 6 years. Officer Martinez was also there, no longer the nervous rookie who'd first encountered Danny on the sidewalk. He'd learned something that day, something that had changed how he saw the job, how he saw the people he was sworn to protect. "Congratulations," Martinez said. "Thanks, kid. Think you can handle having me as a partner?" "I think I can learn a lot from you." Danny nodded. "We'll learn from each other." Later that evening, Danny sat on the steps of the old church where he'd spent so many nights. The duffel bag was gone, traded for a small apartment the department had helped him find. The torn jacket was gone too, replaced by a crisp uniform. But the understanding remained. The connection to the streets, to the people who lived in the shadows, to the ones who'd been forgotten. His radio crackled. "Unit 15, we have a report of a disturbance at the Morrison Street shelter. Possible assault." Danny keyed the mic. Unit 15 responding. As he walked toward his patrol car, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Purpose. Not just the purpose of being a cop, but the purpose of being a bridge between two worlds. The badge on his chest caught the streetlight, gleaming like a promise. A promise that everyone mattered, that everyone deserved to be seen, that everyone deserved protection. Danny Fields was home. The end.